From the North Devon coast to the Atlantic shores, from the tropical rainforests to the sunny Azores, from Icelandic wastelands to Australian deserts. This is Cauldron FM, where the magic really happens.
Enter Merlin, but beware, do not interrupt his magic.
Merry meet, and thank you for joining me in the last show of 2010. I hope you've enjoyed being with me so far, and I look forward to developing Cauldron FM over the next 12 months to a mainstream radio station, and I hope that you'll stay with me and enjoy that process. So for the last show, I thought what I would do is do something a little bit different, something special. Fortuitously, I met via Facebook a lady who was soon to become my friend, a lady called Rowan Darkmoon Dragonstorm. And I asked Rowan if she would mind me interviewing her because she'd just had her first book published. At this request, Rowan sort of panicked a little bit and refused to do that for personal reasons. But what she did say was that she would do an interview over the internet. And this that follows is the results of that interview. So let's look now at the life of Rowan Darkmoon Dragonstorm. Rowan lives in Essex, on the east coast of England, not far from the village where she was raised. In her own words, she describes her upbringing as taking place in a quiet little village, nothing more than a collection of houses, a corner shop cum post office, and a lot of fields. You might think that it was an ideal place to grow up, she says. However, as a teenager she became very bored with village life, and again in her own words she recalls, "Well, it was great until I hit the age of about 13 or 14. But at that age all I wanted to do was go out with my friends and have fun. Because I had no friends in the village, and the next village was around 3 miles away, I became very, very bored." She began writing stories to alleviate the boredom of her day-to-day village life, and this decision set the direction for her life's journey. At this point, let us return to Rowan's own account of her life. "I moved away from home to live with my sister at the age of 16. Looking back at it now, I can see that I was far too young. I was very naive, book smart, but not streetwise or savvy. I'd never even had a proper boyfriend. I had a job, but no enthusiasm for a career." By her own admission, Rowan was a shy girl and not very worldly wise. So when she was asked out by a chap at work, she said yes. Within the next 10 years, she married, divorced, married, and separated. And as she says, "It was during this second marriage that I began work on my book, The Quest. Then, as described by someone far wiser than me, I entered a season of calm. I met my partner, divorced my second husband, and spent quite a few years working through some issues that had arisen within my marriages. It was during this new period of my life that I became pregnant with my first of 3 children, despite being told at the age of 18 that I could never have children. 2 subsequent children followed, and Rowan's life as a mother was complete. Rowan's partner works long hours, and because she has elected to be at home for the children, she supplements the family income by running her own home-based crochet business, Cozy Crochet and Crafts, in which she enjoys creating her own unique designs of headwear and other handmade delights that she sells via mail order. In a wonderfully frank manner, she said about this, "It's nice to bulk up the family finances. even if it's only by 20 quid a week or so, and that's when business is good. My partner works all the hours he can, but even so, with everything going up in price the way it is, the extra wonga comes in handy. More recently, Rowan has also set up a new website, Dragonstorm's World, which is an outlet for her creative writings. Published and sold via the internet, The Quest is the first book of a magical trilogy. Rowan also tells me that it is her ambition to publish a book of dragon-inspired poetry containing works such as The Sun Dragon, which I will read very shortly. I then went on to ask Rowan about her sources of inspiration for the work that she does, and she replied, "Well, the crochet work is all based on what I saw my grandmother doing. I learned crochet and knitting from watching her. I don't follow any patterns for my work. My poetry has a Wiccan pagan twist, and my stories, both short and long, are mainly fantastical in nature. I have a close affinity to dragons, and much of my work contains and is sometimes co-written by dragons. The Sun Dragon. A dragon's work is never done. You fly all day to catch the sun. You can never be outrun. This duty you can never shun. The darkness is a time of rest, the time when you feel most blessed, preparing for your new contest to chase the sun back to the west. And so the cycle starts again. Your strength and power never wane. Your antics do not just entertain, they start the wheel around again." And that's The Sun Dragon by Rowan Dragonstorm. And finally, before moving into an excerpt from The Quest, I asked Rowan if she could identify the source of her inspiration for the trilogy. And this is what she said. "Okay, my inspiration for the Quest trilogy. Wow, that is a story in itself. As a teenager, I was always a vivid dreamer. Awake or asleep, my dreams were always of crystal clarity. They seemed to have a flow. Where I left off dreaming one night, I would usually pick up the thread of the dream again the next. After the trauma of my marriages, I lost this knack of dreaming, and I cannot tell you how much I missed it. But my daydreams seemed just as bright and shiny, and I could spend literally hours staring off into the distance, making up weird and strange worlds in my head. It caused some consternation within my family, and I was sent to psychiatrists and doctors because it was thought that I was having some sort of mental or emotional breakdown due to post-traumatic stress disorder. In a way they were correct, but in another way they were so very wrong. I was simply trying to rediscover a very important part of myself that had been lost in the intervening years. The characters from The Quest were some of my favourite fantasies, and each one was a part of myself, or something I aspired to be. The strength of the dragon, the coldness of the wizard, the freedom of the human, and the self-control of the elf. Soon these people were clamouring to have their story written. I'd written short stories before, usually in the horror genre, and the task ahead seemed daunting. It helped though when I bought a dragon ornament and sat it on the desk that I was working at. I started writing that day, and the rest is history. So now, after that very clear account of where the inspiration came from, I think it is time to take a break before we listen to the extract from The Quest. Thank you very much, Rowan, for the frank and very candid interview that you've given us. And by way of a small token of my appreciation, I would like to play you a piece of music. And this piece of music is taken from my own work, Somerset Story, and I call it The Time of Dragons.
As the mist began to clear, I opened my eyes and looked around. I saw before me wondrous beasts breathing fire into the air. I had arrived at the time of dragons. Having watched for a while, I was aware of a change in my surroundings. The picture faded and was replaced by a new sight.
Mystical, magical,